Hey, what's up guys? Today I want to talk about the new artifact sets coming in Inazuma and a big mistake that honestly probably a lot of players are going to make, even despite this video, that I do want to warn you guys about so you don't waste your resin and your artifacts. And so we're going to talk about what that mistake is and also a full rundown on the two new artifact sets, talk about how good they are and on which characters they will be useful. But with that being said, I don't want to waste any of your time. I want to talk about the reason why you clicked on this video, so let's get right into it. Before we begin, I want you guys to know that I stream most nights on Twitch, link in the description if you're interested, and also a shout out to Zjeff77 for doing a lot of the math behind the new artifact sets. With that being said, let's go. So what are we talking about in this video? Well, as you guys can see on screen now, there are two new artifact sets coming in Inazuma. And while we are going to cover both in this video, who they're good on, how good the sets are overall, and how to use them, the main thing I want to do is warn you guys about a mistake regarding the Emblem set. This set will give you 20% energy recharge on the 2-piece, which is great. And then the 4-piece is absolutely amazing. It gives you damage percent based on your energy recharge. In fact, you'll gain 25% of your energy recharge as elemental burst damage, and you can get up to 75% of this. Now, this looks really good, and it is, but people are going to overvalue this and stack energy recharge way too much. And so the main thing I want to tell you guys is that this new set does not change the energy recharge you need or want on basically any character. What I mean by that is every character has a set amount of energy recharge they need to use their burst on cooldowns. So for the sake of example, let's say a character like Xingqiu needs about 180 with Sacrificial Sword. It could be more, it could be less, depending on your refinement, your team comp, all that, but let's just use 180 as an example right now. Let's say you need that 180 energy recharge and you are running the new set. The new set's 2-piece will already give you 20%, which is great, and the 4-piece will increase your damage by 25% of that 180, being a total of 45% damage increased. That is really huge and definitely something you should consider running on your Xingqiu. However, you still shouldn't run him on any more energy recharge than what you need. You shouldn't feel the need to run a Sacrificial Sword and an energy recharge sands, or just an insane amount of ER on the substats if you pass the threshold of what you want. If you're wondering why, it's because at that point, attack percent on the sands or substats, or even crit on any substat, would be much more valuable, will give you a lot more damage than energy recharge. If you need the ER to spam your burst on cooldown, then by all means, run more energy recharge. But if you already have enough ER, running extra is just worse than having attack or crit or any other substat that could be useful for you. To showcase what I mean, an energy recharge sands gives you 51.8% ER, which will increase your damage by about 13%. And so to keep this as simple as possible, the damage you gain from this energy recharge sands is not as much damage as an attack percent sands would give you. And I see a lot of people even now already running energy recharge sands on characters that don't need it, stacking an insane amount of ER on like their Xingqiu or their Beidou or their Xiangling, just running way more energy recharge that is necessary. And so I know for a fact that people are going to do this with the new set because you gain damage percent on the ER that you have. That being said, once you have enough energy recharge, or even enough to be comfy, enough to spam your burst on cooldown with your playstyle in your rotations, any extra energy recharge will not be nearly as valuable as attack percent or even crit. So for those reasons, running an attack percent sands on most characters, if you can manage it, is usually still the way to go and will give you just more damage. So I don't want to repeat myself, but I really want to make myself clear. The new artifact set is absolutely amazing and something that you honestly probably should farm for just a lot of support characters, and we'll get into who it's actually good on in like 10 seconds. But it doesn't mean you should overstack ER on your characters. You should just get enough to either be able to spam your burst on cooldown or to be comfy, whatever you enjoy for your playstyle, but don't overstack it because you think that you need it. So with that section finally out of the way, let's talk about which characters this new artifact set is good on, and then we'll move on to the second new artifact set, which is the Reminiscence set, which actually does also have some pretty good uses. But before we get into that one, we're going to talk about the Emblem set, which is the energy recharge one. So who is the Emblem set good on? Well, it's just a pretty good set overall that's good on a very large amount of characters, notably characters like Xingqiu, characters like Beidou, characters like Xiangling, who have high energy cost bursts that deal a lot of damage. So not only would the 2-piece set give them 20% energy recharge, which is effectively giving them like good substats, but you also gain the 25% burst damage to whatever ER you have. Also for a character like Beidou, like she can be a support who runs a lot of energy recharge, in which case the set is just amazing. But even in teams where she's like an on-field DPS, even if you need like less ER than a support, maybe 135, 140-ish, which is 25% of 140, so 35%, is still really good and can be her best in slot, making it comparable to like 2TF with 2 Noblesse, but it also gives you 20% energy recharge, which you'd normally need in substats. And even for a character like Xiangling, who has other really good sets, and you might still want to run those if your substats are better, getting 20% ER on the 2-piece is a massive feature that we shouldn't ignore because it allows you to get just better substats. Let's say that 15% ER you would generally need in a feather, right? Right here I have 16. Instead, you'd gain that on your 2-piece set, and so by focusing less less on ER on your substats, you can maybe get more crit if you're lucky, or just not have to be as picky with your artifacts, be able to have quote unquote worse artifacts and get away with it, or min-max your character even further by getting more crit, more attack percent, more elemental mastery, and just give your burst more damage. And while that is mainly for a DPS or a carry version of these characters, if you're running them as like a reaction support, like let's say you're running Xiangling in a Melt Ganyu team, your Xiangling needs a lot of energy recharge, like an insane amount, to where this new set will actually give you so much damage percent that it's definitely the way to go. It's also good on maybe like some quick swappy supports like Kaya or Rosaria, who let's say ran as like a burst support, powerful cryo applier that also deals damage. In teams where you're running them on a decent amount of energy recharge, having that burst damage bonus is very good for them. And it's also pretty good on Amber as a support if you do plan to use her. And it can also be okay on a character like Bennett for especially the 2-piece that gives you energy recharge. And the 4-piece will give you damage, but generally speaking, I tend to prefer Noblesse Oblige to buff my whole team. Also, I thought it'd be worth mentioning that it could be a viable set for Mona, who I don't have, in a team where she's trying to deal some burst damage. And while I mentioned most characters that are good for this set, in case, just to add some more so that I can really cover every character in this video, I do want to mention that it can be good on Chongyun with high ER for burst spam, and some people have mentioned it for Lisa as being a viable option for her, and it is, but generally speaking, I would recommend running her on Thrilling Tales with Noblesse Oblige as a low investment support to buff your team, more so than a damage dealer. But that is still something to consider. But yeah, overall, this new Emblem of Severed Fate is amazing. I'm definitely planning on grinding it for a lot of characters because it is best in slot on a ton of them. But just keep in mind, avoid the mistake that I mentioned of stacking too much ER. Moving on to the next set, the Reminiscence set. A lot of people have been dismissing this as being bad. And granted, it isn't as like universal as the Emblem set, but it does have some uses. First of all, the 2-piece set gives you 18% attack, which as you know, is the same as the 2-piece Glad. That being said, 2-piece Gladiator is notoriously difficult to farm. It's the hardest set in the game, this and Wanderers, to get a good set of because you only get it from bosses and you're only guaranteed a 5-star at AR 55 or higher. That means that farming a good Gladiator piece is very difficult, and it took me so long to get good Shao pieces that I wouldn't recommend going through this trouble for most people. And so with this new set, there's a new 2 Glad, so if any character previously needed 2-piece Glad like Shao, you can just grind that domain instead and not have to go through the trouble of getting Glad. And for Shao specifically, like 2 Verdescent 2 Glad is currently his best in slot, but since your burst gives you so much damage percent, depending on a lot of external factors, like if you're running a Bennett, if you have a lot of attack in your substats, the new 2-piece set might actually be his best in slot when paired with 2 Glad, just for the ton of attack percent you would gain, or it can be a replacement to that if you do want to run a 2-piece Verdescent for the 15% Anemo damage. Other than just the 2-piece though, the 4-piece set is pretty interesting. If you don't know what it does, whenever you cast an elemental skill, if your character has 15 or more energy, they lose 15 energy, and they gain 50% normal charge and plunge attack damage for 10 seconds. Now what that means is it's basically only good on characters who don't care about spamming their burst that much. And when I think about who this can be applied on right now, there are some niche examples, but the main character is actually good on is Ganyu. Now keep in mind, this won't be amazing in her Morgana team, where you're running her on 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, perma-freezing enemies with Venti and Mona, but if you are running her in a charge-shotting build, maybe a Melt Ganyu, or just any comp where you're spamming your charge attacks, not caring about your burst too much, this new artifact set can be her best in slot. And as I mentioned, there can be some niche uses with like some other characters, but overall, it does seem to be right now a Ganyu set, or characters who don't really care about using their burst too much, but just want to amplify their normal, charge, or plunge attacks. Also, the set could be good for a physical Kaching, however, it gives the same amount of bonuses as for Pale Flame, so it won't be better, and Pale Flame doesn't have the energy restrictions, but it could be a good alternative if your substats are better, or if you just want to play it, and it's basically just another viable set for Kaching on a physical build, which could be pretty nice. And while I know some people tend to go more in detail on the niche uses of this, like single target Hu Tao, generally speaking, as of right now, apart from being a replacement for Pale Flame on physical Kaching, it's really only best in slot for a Ganyu who's charge shotting, so usually in like a Melt comp, as far as the 4-piece is concerned at least, where the 2-piece is just a nice 18% attack bonus to whoever needs it. And so I'm definitely more excited for the Emblem set, but the Reminiscence basically has one character where it's best in slot on, a few viable options, and it might be good on future characters, who knows, but there is some potential for the set to be good. The Emblem set, however, as I mentioned, is insane and very good on many characters because it gives you ER and gives you damage percent, which is great for burst supports or even on-field DPSs like Beto, who rely on their burst to deal almost all of their damage. Overall though, these sets are pretty amazing, especially the energy recharge one. It will really change a lot of builds. I tried to include a general guide of it in this video, but I will go more in detail in future videos, future guides for specific characters, because this set is very good on many different characters. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tried to keep this one brief, shorter than my usual videos, because Inazuma is coming out and I'm so excited. Stay tuned for a ton of content. I have so many videos planned. So if you haven't already, be sure to sub to catch the new videos when they come out. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.